Whether you're using a microphone to record your own voice or other instruments, you'll find that this tutorial on using mics with GarageBand is going to be essential. We're going to take a look at some different types of mics and cables. We'll look at some best practices when setting levels. We'll take a look at mic placement, and we'll talk about what you do and you don't need to get a great sound in GarageBand. Two of the top used microphones in the world are the Shure SM57 and Shure SM58. They're rock solid, and it's pretty hard to get them to sound bad. They're just kind of an industry standard. A dynamic microphone like a Shure SM58 is really easy to use because you plug it in, you turn up the level, and you're ready to go. Condenser microphones will require something called phantom power. And that power is what gets the microphone powered and ready to use. Be careful when using phantom power, because if you unplug a microphone while phantom power is engaged, you could damage your preamps. Always start off by putting the clip on the mic stand and then the microphone into the clip. Use about a fist distance from the vocalist to set up your microphone. A pop filter is great to eliminate pops, but don't get sold by too many crazy things. You don't need too much more than just good mic placement. Angling the microphone down toward the chest will give you a little more chest resonance, and angling the microphone up toward your head will give you a little bit more top-end openness and head voice. For a microphone, you're going to need an XLR cable. And to connect an XLR cable, it's really easy. You just take it and put it into the end of the microphone, and then there's a latch to remove it. The vocal sounds great on its own, but it's meant to be a background vocal. Let's start by trimming the ends. By trimming the ends, we'll avoid any sort of bleed that was in the microphone or any other noises. Now I'd like to add a fade on each of those trims. I'm going to hit A to enter automation, and by clicking I could draw two automation dots. This is going to allow us to automate the volume, basically have the volume go down and raise for the clip. By doing this, we avoid any unintentional noises that may have gotten into the microphone. Let's start by taking a look at our sends. Ambience gives us a shorter type of reverb. And reverb gives us a longer reverb tail. By using a little of each, you could get a really natural sound that fattens out the voice. There are additional plugins that you could use, and by coming to the bottom left and clicking in an empty plugin slot, we could do something like put a chorus in. And since this is a background vocal, that could be a good thing. What if we put ensemble in? While I'm not a big fan of presets, do play around with some of the presets and see what works for you. There are some other plugins. For instance, if you go to Pitch and go to Vocal Transformer, you have the ability to change the pitch of the voice. Listen as we bring the pitch up. Or we could bring the pitch down. The formant is what controls the quality of the voice. It can make a voice sound more masculine or more feminine. And a cool tip is to adjust the formant and make multiple copies of that voice. By doing that, it could sound like multiple people are singing the same part. Now let's listen to a totally different voice.
Your daddy's rich, and your mama's good looking.
Let's start first with some compression.
Your daddy's rich.
You can see that our compressor engages on some of the louder sounds, and that's exactly what a compressor does, is it softens or lowers the louder sounds. And by turning up our ratio, we could actually determine how much we soften those louder sounds.
Your daddy's rich, and your mama's
And finding the right balance on a
good
compressor is going to really help it
looking.
sit proper in the mix. Notice as we adjust the amount knob on the compressor, you also see it adjust on the compressor plugin. That's because these knobs are mapped to control those plugins. The same thing goes for the EQ. Let's start by boosting our mid EQ and then sweeping the mid frequency.
So hush, little baby, don't you
We're actually looking for
cry.
something we don't like, so we boosted and swept around for something we didn't like, and then we cut it out. Now open up the
Your
top end with a little
daddy's
high-end boost,
rich,
and let's get rid of some rumble with some low cut. But don't go too far
and
with
your
your low cut, because doing that
mama's
will get rid of the
good
natural resonance of the voice.
looking. So hush, little baby.
And there's no reason you can't put a low cut in and a low boost, because the low cut is really cutting the sublows. You could see here, on this green section, this is the mids that we were boosting and cutting. Orange is the lows that we were boosting, and there's our low cut all the way on the left. On the right is the high boost. And our EQ knobs are really just controlling that EQ graph we see there. So it's a redundant visual of the same thing. Now there was a lot of great room sound already in the microphone, so we're just going to add a little bit of reverb.
Rich, and your mama's
Let's adjust the EQ
good
a little more.
looking. So hush, little baby, don't you cry.
And that's just another awesome performance. Just like we did on the other example, let's automate this to make sure that we don't have anything sticking out at the end that we don't need. And we'll do the same thing in the beginning. Just put a point in and just drop the volume so that it gradually comes in.
Your daddy's rich.
Now this R&B vocal is a totally different character. What's interesting here is we have the vocal and the snaps together.
We're always on the brink 'cause you can't stand leaving.
So let's see how the compressor and EQ work with the snaps and the vocal as one track. We're going to start by cleaning up the beginning with a trim and then using a little automation. Once again, hit A and then just draw in your volume automation to get rid of any sounds in the beginning and the end that you don't want. Let's add a little compression.
I'm barely breathing. We're always on the brink 'cause you can't stand
Let's open the plugin on the left,
leaving.
and just like we did on the other one,
Gotta
adjust the
find it
ratio
to fight.
so that you get a little more
Something's
compression.
not right. We gon' find out tonight.
And let's add some reverb.
I'm barely breathing. We're always on the brink.
Now this time, let's do all of our EQ sculpting directly on this graph. Turn on the EQ on the left side, and let's put in a low cut. We'll turn on our analyzer at the bottom so you can see exactly where the voice is.
Something's not right. We gon' find
Now
out
this is a mid boost that really isn't too flattering. It's kind of nasal. So let's cut that out. That's better. Let's open the top end. The voice usually opens up nicely around 5K, and we'll put a nice shelf on the top end, and maybe cut the very, very high end to give it a nice warm sound. Now you can see what each EQ band is doing by turning them on and off at the top. Listen as we turn them off and then on.
I'm barely breathing. We're always on the brink 'cause you can't stand me leaving. I gotta find it in me to fight.
And that's so much better.
Not right.
Most people like to gravitate toward presets, but try to get out of that habit and learn the techniques on your own. You'll find that the results will be much better.